PIKKON and Janemba's EZAs are phenomenal, but how should you build their hidden potential? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are taking a look at the brand new EZA AGL Paikuhan and the Kaioken Goku, the TEQ Janemba, and the STR Paikuhan. All four of these characters have just received their EZA and sub-EZA. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and show you how to build each one of their hidden potentials from this Otherworld Warriors batch. It does seem like we are moving into a part 2 celebration centered around the Otherworld Warriors tournament. So probably best that we start building this up, because chances are we're going to be getting some missions needing some of these characters. So let's start with the AGL Paikuhan. Paikuhan is a connected hope, category key 3, HP attack and defense 180%, superclass key 3, and attack and defense 130. So really nice that they bumped the 170 up to 180. That's really nice there. On his super attack effect, he is greatly raising attack and defense for the turn, causing immense damage and greatly lowering attack. On his unit super that he can activate with a Goku and Vegeta Angel, he's doing the same thing, but it gives him effective against all types for the turn. So very useful skill when he does it. On his basic effects, he has a high chance of evading enemies' attack and attack and defense 200%, and superclass allies 30% attack and defense. When he from his entry turn, he gets 200% defense and guards all attacks. For 3 key spheres obtained, he gets Otherworld Warriors or Connected Hope, an additional 30%. So, right, 60% if you have a character, a superclass character on one of these 2 categories. He launches an additional attack that has a 70% chance of becoming a super attack. And with 1 key sphere obtained, one rainbow key sphere obtained, he gets key 4, a chance of evading attack 20%, seals the attacked enemy for 2 turns, and gets attack and defense 200%. So what this means is, right, 20% and then 50%. So he has a 70% chance of evading as long as you can get 1 rainbow key sphere. He does have an active skill that is a Ghost Usher effect that it can be activated 1 enemy as long as they are 50% or more HP. The moment they drop below that, you can't do that. But it's no big deal, right? Chances are when you're gonna want to use it, it's later in the fight, and the enemy will be at full HP. So very good there. So the question is, how do you build his hidden potential? As an AGL type, he's going to naturally lean into additionals, getting a base 20, meaning if you fully invest, you can get up to 30, which gives him a 60% chance to launch an additional super. And that's right in line with where we want him. You want him to take advantage of those additional supers. He's got not the greatest amount of attack, so all that little extra that you could give him does matter. So I recommend a full additional build, since he already has a 70% chance to dodge. A full additional build will not only allow him to take advantage of that unit super, but also deal just a little bit extra damage. We are in a meta where damage does matter. We're talking bosses with upwards of 1 billion HP, so every extra super that a unit can do will help. Now, with that being said, since he is effective against all types, he does not need critical hits, even though that means he won't have it on his second 2 attacks. For the most part, you're going to be wanting to run him with the ability to activate his unit super, and even when you don't, his main function will be to support and to activate that Ghost Usher. So the critical hit isn't all that necessary for him, especially since it would come at the cost of giving up what I recommend for his sub, which is dodge. Again, as a floating support unit, his best thing is going to be to launch those additional supers, dodge, and support. And so you have one of 2 ways you can go about this, and this is kind of going to more depend on how you want to build his skill orbs, but you can dump in you can dump in 6, right? Just the baseline sub for the dodge, which would only give him a 6%. Or if you have the skill orbs to do so, I recommend doing a dodge and additionals build on the skill orb tree, and that would give him an additional 16 to the 30% for the additional super. That is probably the best thing you could do for this guy. It's going to make him function the best as a floating support type unit. So additionals and sub dodge. For your bronze, honestly, you can go either way in terms of his skill orbs. He can go, I went defense, as you can see here on screen, but you could also just dump in another level 2 dodge if you wanted to. I don't really think either one makes a difference. The defense just does help him a little bit should he fail a dodge, although currently he can tank most normals should he fail a dodge. So with that, let's go ahead and let's shift over to the TEQ Janemba. TEQ Janemba is Corroded Body and Mind 180% and Extreme 130%. His super attack effect is greatly stacking, or not greatly, is stacking attack for every turn and causing immense damage. He's getting 180% attack and defense. He's guarding all attacks. He has 50% damage reduction and gives extreme class allies 30% attack and defense. If you get 3 or more keyspheres obtained, he's giving Corroded Body and Mind uncontrollable power, an additional 30, so that's 60% total. Launches an additional attack that has a 70% chance of becoming a super attack. And with 1 rainbow keysphere obtained, he gets defense 150 and an additional 30% damage reduction. Now, every time he receives an attack, he builds 20% attack and gets an additional, loses an additional damage reduction down to 50. So the longer he stays in, the less damage reduction he's going to have. Once you finally can transform him after he receives 5 or more attacks, he becomes Super Janemba, and now he is greatly raising attack and raising defense for the turn. So both of these are for the turn, and he gets an additional attack and defense 200%. Randomly changes keyspheres of a certain type to any one keysphere type. Changes AGL keyspheres to Rainbow and guards all attacks with a high chance of evading the enemy's attack. With 3 or more keyspheres obtained, he gets attack defense 100%, launches an additional super attack. With 1 or more rainbow keysphere obtained, he gets a chance of evading enemies attack 30%, so that's an 80% chance to dodge. Before receiving an attack within the turn, he gets an additional damage reduction rate 30%, performs a critical hit temporarily on his next attacking turn after evading, and gets an additional 250% attack and defense with 12 or more key. As a tech type, you're going to naturally lean into critical hit, which would give him a 40% chance and up to 50% chance if you invest fully, giving him the extra 10. But I don't recommend you do that, or yeah, up to 60 actually he can get with the 30, but I don't recommend you do that, right? In fact, the best thing you can do for Janemba, because he has the built-in critical hits, is to go ahead and give him no dodge whatsoever, just like the PIKKON, right? In his case, the best thing to do, again, is invest fully in the additional attacks. And instead of going for the full 30, I actually, with the skill orb, I actually recommend only doing 25 and using your skill orbs to build defensive equips. If you have bronze, silver, and gold, all that much more better, which would really put him at 20. However, silver defense and add skill orbs are very, very hard to come by, so I figure most people, you can just go for the additional super attack in the silver slot with your gold and your bronze being defensive equips. The higher the better For his sub, definitely recommend going dodge as a tech type. You can get 6 out of him naturally, or you can give a little bit extra out of the hidden potential skill orbs to get him up to 16. That's definitely, I think, what the best way you can do it for him, giving him the ability to take advantage of what he's doing most. Since he is stacking attack and base, the extra dodge and defense equips are going to help him out once he loses that damage reduction. Because, I mean, depending on the fight, you may want to keep him in the Fat Janemba form longer in order to stack up more attack for when he transforms, because once he transforms, he becomes an offensive powerhouse. I've seen this dude throw off 3 40 million supers with only about 3 stacks in base. So, right, the longer you can keep him in base, the stronger he's going to become. And so the additional defense and dodge is going to help him in those areas. So that's it for Janemba. Again, same as the PIKKON, additionals and sub dodge. So let's move on to the sub EZAs, right? For the PHY Super Kaioken Goku, not too worried about his leader skill. This is more, PHY types 100. That's, good for battlefield. His super attack effect is massively raising attack for the turn while sacrificing 5% HP. He gets attack and defense 200% and key 4. He gets 50% chance of evading enemy's attack and randomly changes key spheres to another type. He does have the ability to survive a KO attack when receiving an attack, and this is once within the turn, so this can be used multiple times. He has defense 100% when 80% or more. When 80% or less, he changes key spheres from Fizz to STR. When attacking with 12 or more key, he gets an additional 100% attack and defense, and an additional attack and defense 50% when HP is 80% or less with 12 or more key. With STR, for his key spheres obtained, he gains 2 additional super attacks, and for every STR or key sphere obtained, he gets an attack 40% and an increased chance of performing a critical hit 10%. He guards all attacks with AGL or TEQ or INT, and an additional 20%. An additional attack and defense 20% and chance of evading enemies attack 5% for every AGL, TEQ, or INT key sphere obtained. So the more you get, the more chances he has to dodge. So if you really want to push the nuke, you'll go for the Fizz key spheres or the STR key spheres. But if you want to keep him alive, right, stall out a turn, you can go for the AGL, TEQ, or INT, depending on what he has changed for the turn. So it's really nice. And he's still going to hit pretty hard depending on how many orbs you get. So honestly, really, really good in that regard. And the survive KO mechanic brings up some interesting choices for his abilities. So for him, I actually recommend going full dodge, right? As a Fizz type, he can't really get into that, right? He's going to naturally lean into additionals, which do help him, but given that he has like 0 defense, the best thing to do for him is to lean into that dodge for the turns when you are picking up the Fizz or STR key spheres. That's going to help him the most. He's got a baseline 50, so the additional 25 is an extra 25% proc, an extra 1 in 4 chance to proc and get the dodge should you miss it. That is going to help him the most. And then sub additionals. You can go sub additionals with no skill over investment, and that'll give you 11, or you can do the additional or you can use your skill orbs to give him additionals and get him up to 21, which is an additional 42% chance to do an additional super attack. Very, very helpful. I do recommend his bronze at a minimum be an attack skill orb, and if you have the additionals and super attack boost for his gold, then use that as well as his silver. Personally, I added more dodge for his, but you could definitely get away with adding more additionals, because that massively raised attacks means his second 2 supers after the first are going to be incredibly powerful. Either one of those builds works. Full dodge, but the various levels of you can go various levels of sub additionals. It's up to you and your build. So all that leaves is the last one, easily the worst of the bunch, but you still may want to build him for certain missions, right? So we have the STR Paikuhan, who is raising attack and defense for the turn, causing immense damage and greatly lowering enemies' attack. He's got attack and defense 150%, all enemies 50% down defense. He's got an additional attack that has a 50% chance of becoming a super attack and a high chance of evading enemies' attack for 4 turns. For every super attack performed, he's got an additional 20% attack and defense. He's got infinitely, mind you, he's got a chance of performing a critical hit and chance of evading enemies' attack 10% up to 50%. He's got a additional 100% when the enemy is in attack down or defense down. He's got an additional damage reduction rate 50% before receiving an attack within the turn. If all allies are Otherworld warriors or tournament participants, he gets an additional attack 100%, chance of performing a critical hit, damage reduction rate 20%, and an additional attack that has a great chance of becoming a super attack. So this guy is really interesting because, like the STR Dispo, he is actually stacking attack, but it's on his passive, right? So his additional attack and defense stacks come through his passive for every super attack performed. It doesn't stop. There is no cap. So every turn he'll be up to 60% stronger if you get the 3 additional supers. This could be helpful. This could be useful, but at a 20% rate, it does mean, especially just on the passive rather than the super attack effect, it does mean that his stacks are a little bit slow. But nonetheless, as an STR type, he's going to naturally lean into critical hit, getting up to 40%. So for this guy, I recommend a sort of more balanced build given what he's doing. Definitely lean heavy into the dodge. You can get 16 out of him, but I don't recommend going more than that. Take the base 16 on his dodge, so that is a full dodge investment for him, but use your skill orbs to give him some additional attack and additional super attacks, right? So use your silver and your gold to build the additional super attacks if you've got them, and use your bronze to get a to increase his attack. Now, personally, I didn't have any more gold additionals for this guy, so I went with the attack instead to allow him to actually deal damage, because he can not as much as the Super Kaioken Goku, but he can actually deal some good damage with those stacks over time. So I would definitely recommend leaning into that, right? Let him do the minimum he can do. He's arguably the worst of the batch, but you know, if you're gonna use him, let him do what he can do. And so I definitely recommend leaning into the attack on the skill orbs, but using his actual potential to go full dodge. So guys, that is our recommendation for each of the hidden potentials for this brand new batch of Otherworld Warriors for the PIKKON, the Janemba, the Super Kaioken Goku, and the STR Paikuhan. If you guys like the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and in the comments down below, let me know, how did you build each one of these guys? I put a lot of thought into the 2 sub EZAs, especially because, you know, they are sub options, and they won't always make it into a team, and so I really thought about how you would utilize them when you would. So if you guys let us know how you guys ended up building the 2 sub EZAs in the comments. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.